Mr. Chainani, you've had a long kind of involvement with Goa.
Yes, it's been a spasmodic but very emotional involvement with Goa. I first came here in 1977. I was on the organizing committee of a national regatta which was being held just in the sea of the Mandovi River.
I see.
And being a sailor, I came by the Mughal Line steamer,
Yeah.
and I was absolutely entranced because I was wearing my kurta pajama. I asked the captain whether I could stand on his bridge to see the ship going in and out of the various ports. At that time, the Konkan coast was still unspoiled. So you go through at night, you see the lights blinking, flashing, passengers coming on, all very romantic. Next day, we landed at Panjim, and I was absolutely astounded. I can remember till this date because you had this beautiful Mediterranean architecture. I've described that in my book. You had these lovely bars all over. Now I love my evening drink, but I don't drink in the daytime. But still, it was nice to see people a bit relaxed. I remember I went to the Kalangut tourist hostel where there was excellent music, beach, sea, and I was staying at a friend's. He had rented a house, and it was absolutely
I see.
out of this world. I've been coming back off and on.
But your main work as far as Goa goes comes
My-
from the field of conservation and CRZ particularly.
My main work has been three.
Yeah.
One was the Konkan Railway,
Yeah.
where I was appointed by Government of India on the committee to comment on the alignment. I had very, very strong views. I think the chairman of the committee behaved dishonestly. Anyway, we were overruled, but we did try our level best. The second, which really became very, very traumatic, was on CRZ. I was one of the authors of the CRZ notification. I was amazed when the Minister Kamal Nath put me on the committee to look into to finalize the coastal plans of all India. And I will never forget November, December 92, because the states were meant to send in their coastal zone management plans. And Goa government said that I think 80 or 90 kilometers of the entire coastline was substantially built up and developed with all infrastructure facilities. Now, I had been to Goa several times before that. I had been there a few months ago, and I did not think that everything was substantially built up of what I saw. In fact, from what I saw, nothing was built up. So there was quite a bitter argument. There was the Chief Secretary, Mr. Bhattnagar was there.
Yeah.
The Chief Planner, Mr. Pondalai. Then, over 3 visits to Goa. I came once for a seminar. I came once as part of a Government of India team. On every time I stayed over, and maybe I must have spent 10 days going from the entire coast where it was accessible. Right, we went down to Karwar. I saw Anjadeep, then moved all the way up to Tirakul Fort. Most of the time I was accompanied by Claude Alvarez, sometimes by Sarto Almeida, and Percival Narona showed me the heritage sites. I think they felt I was being over meticulous, but I say a soldier must be fully prepared with all this ammunition.
But over the years, Goa has got, too overbuilt and concretized.
Goa
Is it a
has-
fate of every scenic place that...
Goa has got shockingly overbuilt and shockingly over concretized. I don't think you Goans will know what is going to hit you. I remember coming to Kalangut in 77, where it was beautiful, charming, pastoral. Now, because for 3 days I was attending a wedding which was off Kalangut beach, and I was shocked. Kalangut, Anjuna, Kalangut, Candolim particularly, I kept telling the person who was giving me a ride, I kept telling him this resembles Andheri or Bandra. It's not Goa at all. Panjim, by grace of God, still has some of its atmosphere. That's why I live here. I don't know how long this atmosphere will remain. We have been trying very hard to get heritage regulations enacted. My colleague Heta Pandit has formed the Goa Heritage Action Group. They've done a tremendous listing. I don't know how many hundreds or thousands of structures. I don't understand what is the problem in getting them protected. It doesn't cause any loss to anybody. Any building rights can be compensated by TDR. That has not yet other than the listing, we have not succeeded in getting protection. In the year 2000, I met the secretary, the Goa Town and Country Planning Board, I think approved it more or less. I don't know why it is now stuck.
Your background is rather unusual. You're a IITian, MITian, studied in the UK and
Correct.
worked for Tatas. And so, what made you move into conservation?
First of all, ever since I was a child, I used to, as I've described in my book, I used to live that time on Queen's Road, and we were in a 5-story Art Deco building opposite the Indo-Gothic buildings of the old Secretariat, Bombay University, Bombay High Court. I used to look at them and say, what lovely buildings they are, and where am I living? My school, the cathedral school run by Anglicans, was a similar structure. We used to go to Mahabaleshwar every year for a holiday, and those stone buildings were beautiful. I said, where am I coming back to? Looking back, the part of Bombay, I still live there on Marine Drive, is still beautiful compared to the sort of trash that has happened elsewhere. Now, I went, 4 years I was at IIT. In those days, I used to walk to Malabar Hill in the holidays because it was green, leafy. Maybe I've been an over-romantic sort of disposition. Then I went off to Cambridge. Then I went to MIT. And I came back and I was shocked what was happening. Bungalow after bungalow, heritage building after heritage building was
changed very fast.
It was, yes, changed very fast. And that time I felt impotent. But then several incidents happened which changed my life, step by step. And I said that the country is going down the tube. I'm in Tata Financial Services, very nice job, very good job. Work was interesting, but that's not, our country is going down the tube. What am I doing? How should I say? And it was the generosity of Tatas who allowed me, though with many attacks, condition. Many people wanted me sacked.
I see.
But right till the end, they kept me.
I see.
I'm eternally grateful. I've mentioned that in my book. And yes, IIT was unusual. I'm really not cut out to be an engineer. I'm more on the arts and the history side. But those days, everyone who did well in school went on to science. Everyone who did science wrote the IIT exam. I still don't know how I got it. So.
And your book, could you tell us a bit about it?
My book is a history of several of our campaigns. And since you mentioned Goa, the book was really meant to be a history of the heritage campaign in Bombay. But then it became bigger and bigger because what is Bombay? All of us think it's only South Bombay.
That's true.
Some of us think it is South Bombay and Bandra. But then there are suburbs. There are what are called the extended suburbs, including Manori Gorai. Then I said, but this, we must also look at Navi Mumbai. Then why not the rest of the Mumbai metropolitan region? And I said, why not Maharashtra? Because that is the same government. And we had got some regulations passed in Pune, Nagpur, etc. Then, of course, I said, what about the rest of India? Now, CRZ has a strong component of heritage. I was going to put that in a subsequent book. My book was going to be called In Defense of Heritage, an Indian Diary. But in the year 2005, we had an environment secretary whose actions were very environmentally damaging, Pradipto Ghosh, and CRZ we thought was going to get scrapped. So I said, let me bring CRZ chapter here. Similarly, Goa was going to be going to my second book, but in Goa we had a major battle which by God's grace at least the rules were framed to preserve the coastal areas. So I brought that in and expanded the Goa chapter. Then of course I've written a 13,000 words on Gujarat because we had just got heritage regulation enacted in Ahmedabad. There's a chapter called Beyond Bombay which gives cameo pictures of other parts of India which will become separate books in themselves, hill stations, cantonments, etc. Then I've given policy suggestions for heritage policy and heritage legislation on which INTAC asked me to write a separate book which I did in January. The institution on Nhava, which we stopped from being taken over by ONGC, they want a book on that campaign. So the centenary next year, I will have to finish that the next few months. Then my other book is, well, now possibly on Goa. Otherwise, I had worked on hill stations and cantonments. Then there will be heritage of other places of India. Most of it is all written. I just want to tidy it up. And because if one is writing for history, I'd like to make it as pakka as possible. Partly because in many cases, I was the only player or the chief player. And partly because other people haven't kept their papers. Those who were there, they haven't kept their papers. I certainly saw hardly anybody making notes of meetings, who said what, which I've got.